Hello, I'm Nick Crawley. Welcome to this Bible for Life ministry. And in this short video, I want to give an introduction to Paul's letter to Galatians. Something like 15 years after the resurrection, when the church was still at a very, very early stage, Paul and Barnabas travelled through an area where we would now say central Turkey, and they planted a whole number of churches, and specifically churches in an area called Galatia. Paul's ministry then led on to all the way around the eastern part of the Mediterranean, but a few years later, and we don't know exactly when it was, he heard news that these churches in Galatia were turning away from the gospel that he had taught them, and specifically that they were starting to be circumcised. Now, I need to explain why this is significant. In the Old Covenant, the entry point to membership was to be circumcised, and if you were circumcised, then the expectation was that you would obey the whole of the Old Covenant law. Now, Paul is very, very upset that when he hears this, and he writes a very strongly worded letter. It comes out at white heat, and he argues correcting these Galatian Christians from the mistakes that they were making. And the first point is simply that he is God's apostle. They're the very first words of the letter. Secondly, he says that the gospel has been given to him by God himself. And thirdly, it has come by revelation from God. So he's, as it were, he's playing the ace of trumps 3 times in a row. It's an extremely strong start. And then throughout the letter, he makes the point that it is the death of Jesus, Jesus' death on the cross, simply often referred to just as the cross, that demarcates the old from the new. And indeed, if you study the cross in Galatians, it's the most brilliant study, and Paul makes some extremely important and leading points all about the cross in this letter. The key point is this, is that through faith in Jesus, a believer, a man or a woman who believes, is justified. That means they are then brought back into right standing with God. It's just as if it had never happened. I like to sort of think of justification as that. Now, faith means more than just believing, as it were, the creed. It means an engaged trusting in God. I mean, we trust that what Jesus did will save us. He will save us as our friend and on our behalf. And therefore, faith is the word faith plays a crucial part in this letter. First of all, by faith, we are justified. If we trust and have faith in Jesus, we will be justified. Secondly, by faith, we become God's children. We are sons and daughters. And because of that, by faith, we receive the promise, which was what God always promised to Abraham, that through Abraham, and God is going to bless his descendants, and all the world will be blessed through this. But it was by faith that Abraham himself was declared justified. And so by faith we become sons of God. We become sons and daughters, and God gives us his Spirit, the Spirit that cries out, Abba, Father. And the whole of our existence is taken into a completely new level of being sons and daughters of God. And we're empowered by the Spirit. And so the last part of the letter, chapter 5 especially, is all about what the Spirit does for us. Now, the key reason why the law was given was it were to control sin. But the problem was it was useless to do it. It didn't got the power to do it. But now that the Spirit is given, we have the motivation, and we have the power, and we're under the control, as it were, the management of the Spirit, and we can deal with the sinful nature. This is through the cross and through the gift of the Spirit, we're brought into a new level of living. And Paul says this in the great imperative that drives the last part of the letter. He says in chapter 5, verse 16, he says, "So I say, live by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the sinful nature." This is the great power of the gospel, and it is the gift, and because a gift of God, and through the Spirit we come into our inheritance in the kingdom, and that begins now, and of course it will come to fulfillment when Christ returns, and from then on. So here we are. This is what Galatians is about. It's a wonderful letter. You'll absolutely love it.